Jyoti is going to be talking about a very interesting topic. It's one that all of us are going to have to deal with our new work from home policies, because where we go to relax has also now become our workplace. So how do you deal with this? So Jyoti's topic is cyber tranquility, nipping burnout in the bud. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction about Jyoti. Jyoti is an author, international speaker, holistic wellness specialist, and coach, dance director, and award-winning leading female cybersecurity executive. As a pioneer in the field of cybersecurity and one of just a handful of leading female CISOs in the world, she is truly passionate about empowering women to face their fears, build confidence in themselves, and shatter the glass ceiling. With a lifelong commitment to empowering people to take charge of their health, wellness, career, and their life as a whole, Jyoti founded the Power of Healing 360 holistic wellness practice. In fact, I believe recently Jyoti was invited to be a part of Forbes Council, to be a part of the Technology and Coaches Council, which is awesome. Congratulations, Jyoti, on that. We cannot wait to hear your views on this very relevant topic. Over to you, Jyoti. Jyoti, are you there? Sorry, she just messaged me. Her computer is frozen. Two minutes. She's just refreshing. So far we've had some very insightful sessions from our speakers, especially the last one. It's something, the last two ones I would say, because it's something that all of us deal with on a daily basis. One of the most common exploits for all of us that we all face is phishing. It's one of also the most, I would say, easiest and common method to deliver ransomware to people's computers. So most phishing attacks are delivered by ransomware. Sorry, most ransomware is delivered by phishing attacks. In fact, even Yahoo, I'm sure you must have heard of the Yahoo hack. It was one of the biggest hacks in the world. 2014, the entire customer database was breached, 2 billion user accounts. That was occurred due to a spear phishing attack to one of Yahoo's employees. So the moment he clicked on the link, it downloaded a packet that installed a backdoor on Yahoo's servers. And using that, they were able to access the entire database. I think Jyoti is back. Jyoti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I was trying to figure out how to share my screen, and it just froze the whole computer.
Can you try again?
Okay. So I just, let's see, what do I click on to share it?
Yeah, next to the microphone, there's a symbol, share screen.
Okay. Okay, I just go to, all right.
Yep, we have your screen.
Great.
So over to you, Jyoti.
Okay. All right, can you see the whole screen now, the whole slide?
Yep, I can. We can see the screen.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry for that. Technology, it can't live with it, can't live without it, right? So this is a great time to talk about just burnout from cyber, and also burnout just from, with everything that's going on in our lives these days. So thank you, Yash, for preparing me for this presentation, because it leads right into it. Yash talked about cyber criminals and cyber bullying and all that kind of stuff. Well, it all comes down to people that may not be well themselves, because if you're well yourself, you're not going to try to cause harm on somebody else. Which is why we're going to talk about a little bit about how to actually take care of yourself, especially if you're in the cyber and IT industries today. So a little story about myself. So I have 3 kids, and during the birth of my third baby, there were a lot of mistakes that were made by my doctor, unfortunately. So I actually couldn't walk for about a year. I was given 6 weeks to live. No one could figure out what was going on. The doctor went missing in action. So a lot of stuff happened. There's a lot of chaos in my life within me and also around me. I really had to change my mindset to really get through it all and find another way, or really believe that there was another way. So as we go along today's presentation, you'll start to hear how the story ended. Obviously, I'm here today, so I did make it through that 6-week mark. But the reason I tell the story is because being a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, in a large organization, being a leader in my space, it really led me to look at life in a different way. So, being a cyber leader, or even if you're not a leader, you're still leading your own life and maybe your family. So, there's so many things that we have to think about on a daily basis. We think about, are we being a good leader? Are we just the boss or supervisor? Or are we actually being a leader that people want to follow and are inspired to follow? We have to have that sort of strategic thinking ability, especially if you're in a cyber industry. That may be even one of the reasons why you wanted to get into it, because you're really good at solving problems. And we're managing risks every day being in cyber and IT, not just in your workspace, but also in your personal life. So you're always taking that risk management decision standpoint. And the one thing I noticed as being a CISO, you have to get really good at communications. It's not just communicating your point, but also communicating the story behind your point. We're always asking for funding or budget from our upper management. We also have to communicate to people around us in a way that they understand. So really, it becomes really crucial to understand what somebody else needs more so than what you need yourself, especially if you're in cyber. Managing those relationships, and of course, being an expert in your field in security and having that technical knowledge is also key. So one thing that I had to do to get over to get through the healing process and also make that decision that there is another way in this, I really had to understand myself from within. And I really started looking into the mind, body, and energy connection. And you'll see how this plays as we go along. So please stay till the end, because the end we will have some really good actual techniques that I'm going to walk you through that you can do today with for yourself, also with your kids, and maybe even teach your own staff, because it is getting really important these days for people to look within and understand how important their own wellness is and how they can affect others. So if you're in the cyber field, even if you're not, if you're in IT in general, we constantly go into a state of crisis mode every day. And what happens is whenever there's an incident or a breach or just a possibility of an incident or something happens or there's some to a system, security always gets blamed, right? Oh, you must have done something. You might have, tried to patch the system. Now something happened. And we're constantly going to the state of alarm on a daily basis. And what happens when you go into a state of alarm is your brain takes you to this fight, flight, or freeze mode, which is actually a good thing. It was meant, the sense of fear was put into place into your brain to actually prevent you from things that you really do need that sense of fear. Like, a truck is coming at you, or you're about to cross the street when there's cars coming. So if you don't have a sense of fear, you'll just be kind of walking into danger. But what we have gotten used to as human beings is going into this alarm mode for almost everything that happens in our life. When somebody says something that you don't like, you go into this alarm mode. Something happens to a system, you immediately go into this alarm mode. Somebody tells you that there's something going on with their own system, you go into this alarm mode. So we've gotten used to going into this alarm state mode for the slightest thing, whether it's an emotional trigger, or it's a mental trigger, or if it's a physical trigger. And what we then do, step 2, is we go into resistance mode. So we get an alarm, and then we immediately try to stop the alarm. And if we're not able to stop the alarm, especially in cyber, if there's an incident or something's happening to a system, it takes time to really investigate, see what's going on, see what needs to be done. And we're not going to be able to get rid of that alarm quickly. And if you're not able to get rid of that stressor quickly, your whole mind, body, energy goes into a state of exhaustion. So when we look at stress, stress can be a good thing. There is such a thing as positive stress. Like when you're, if you ever imagine what a surfer feels like when you're riding along those waves, on a beach, and you have a little bit of stress because you don't really know 100% what's going to happen at the end. So, but you feel like this is the right direction to go, and you feel like really excited about it. That's called good stress. But most of the times we go into the negative stress. And when we're not able to get rid of that stressor, like I had mentioned, you then go into a state of distress. And when you go into a state of distress, it's that prolonged stressor. It's just continuously starting to affect you, and then you start going down this downward spiral. And we'll talk about what the downward spiral is in a second. So when we look at our life today, not only, especially if you're in cyber or IT, you're connected to your work 24/7, even more so now in this remote environment. There's meetings after meetings after meetings, probably no time to do the actual work. It's never ending. You have to have your phone next to you. The first thing you do in the morning is probably get up and check your phone for your messages, or maybe you're even woken up at night sometimes if there's something that happened in your environment. Most likely you're probably working more than 40 hours a week, right? You may have already done so even before, but now it's even more so because you probably don't have that sense of, okay, my time is up, I'm gonna go spend time with family. Since you're glued to your computer, you just kind of tend to stay there. Maybe there's no boundaries and when people can call you and when they can't. And then you're continuing to have all these alarm and resistant exhaustion mode from the incidents, outages, probably lack of resources. And the thing in cyber is mistakes can be costly, right? If you make a small mistake, one small misconfiguration of a database, you can now expose millions of records to the public that may contain personal data, may contain health data, and all eyes are on you. You're the CISO, or you're the cyber expert, or you're the ISSO. And the first person they're going to come to is, hey, what happened here? Can you figure it out? And how did this happen? That's just on the work front. Then you also have home family pressure. Now with all the kids at home, your spouse is at home, you may not have cultivated that inner culture of how do we all work together, how do we get ourselves, how do we prioritize our own wellness so that we can work together. Because if you're like me, when I was going through my journey, you're probably thinking like, oh, but it's somebody else's fault. He said that and she said this, and so therefore they have to fix something about themselves, right? Most of the times that's actually all the time that's not the case. If you feel something that's triggering you based on what somebody else said, it's always within you to heal yourself. But we'll get to that in a second. So we also, how about our finances? It's so under question right now. Like, where are we going after this? Are we going back to the same job? Do we have a job right now? I know a lot of people that lost their jobs. And, we're always in the wired and the go, 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 go. Our modern society has taken such an importance on, you have to stay busy all the time. You have to have this hectic lifestyle. You have to enroll your kids in 20 billion activities. Otherwise, you are not going to feel that you successfully raised your kids, right? There's all of these stressors. So if you take a moment and just relax, how do you react when all of the stress shows up in your life? Do you treat stress as a good friend that you can learn from and grow with? Or do you kind of treat it as a friend that you really never want to see again? It's like an uninvited friend that's just spending way too long in your house that you could live without. So one thing I had to do in my healing journey, and also to really get back to the world, is I had to look at stress in a different way. I couldn't, I was just done looking at stress as a negative thing. Because the more you look at things as a negative, the more you're trying to distance yourself from the negative and not really allowing yourself to process what's really going on. So I had to look at stress and even chaos as just, the thought that I had it all under control. So I thought, going into this third C-section for my baby, I got this covered. I know what to expect. And, just that thought is being tested right now because it didn't go as expected. I didn't expect to be given 6 weeks to live with none of the doctors knowing what's going on. But the best thing it can do is just reach for a solution in the moment. So it's not the solution, which sometimes we tend to jump. We human beings, want a quick answer to everything, right? Like they want to solve something like really quickly, even if it's deep down. So, I had to get away from that thinking that, okay, I'm going to just solve all of this chaos at one time. I just wanted to reach for a solution in the moment, and we'll see what that means. So what are some of your symptoms from burnout? If you're experiencing burnout, you're not alone. All of us have been there. I've been there myself, because especially if you're in cyber, you're constantly problem solving on a day-to-day basis, right? Everything's a problem that you have to solve, which sounds like, a great thing when you first get into it. You're like, oh, great. Again, I love solving problems. I totally loved puzzles when I was growing up. But then there is such a thing as too much problem solving. Every day you're solving problems. And if you are a parent, there's no break there unless you allow yourself to take those breaks. You're again going home, or you're at home already and you're continuing to solve problems throughout the day with your kids, with your spouses, with, your finances, everything that we mentioned earlier. So what happens is you start to, of course, get emotionally, physically, mentally exhausted. You then start kind of setting some limits and boundaries. You start like depersonalizing things, which then leads to kind of low self-esteem because you're not going to be able to do that or withhold that. Then you might start turning a little cynical and getting a little grouchy, or probably have low energy from lack of sleep. Maybe your dietary habits have changed. Either you're tending to eat a lot, or you're not eating, enough because maybe you're working too hard. So all of these things start happening, right? So what can we do about that? I know you don't want to hear about all the problems. Like, let's get to, the actual solutions. So one thing we can do is manage our expectations. So the reason why you feel disappointed or frustrated, or even start doubting your own self-worth a lot of these times, which then leads you to this bottom spiral over here, is because we're expecting something that someone or something is not meeting our own expectations of them. Now, if we think about this, they will never be able to meet your expectations, right? Because it's your expectations. So you're setting your bar up here, and then you're kind of expecting someone or something or some situation to happen that's going to meet every single parameter and criteria that you set for them without even telling them what your expectations are. It's almost like you're just setting them up for failure. You're also setting up yourself up for failure as well. So if you look at this chart really quickly, it's called the Emotional Guidance Scale. It's from Esther Hicks from the book Ask and It's Given. And if you look at that gray line, that's where most people think that they need to aim towards. It's like, calm and peaceful. And that's fine. You could aim for that, because if you're downward, like way down there in the red spiral, then yeah, you at least want to get to that gray scale. But just look at everything above that gray scale. There's joy, there's excitement for life, there's feeling fulfilled. Why do you get up every day? What excites you? There's all these emotions above that just calm and peaceful, serene line. That's really where we all as humanity just need to aim towards. It's not, I didn't say it's going to be easy, but there's all of these positive emotions we're meant to feel that we usually don't really reach for. We kind of just reach for like that, okay, I just want to get to a state of peace. That's fine, but you're really not going to be innovate and grow from just a state of peace. Like, you really want to move towards this upward spiral. So that doesn't mean that you're always this happy-go-lucky, positive person. I may sound like that right now, but and I used to think that I had to be that way all the time. And the moment I have a negative emotion, I felt that, oh my gosh, like I'm not really good at this. I did something wrong. or all my coaching or all these programs I'm doing and all these things I'm learning is not really working. And that is so far from the truth. We have to allow ourselves to feel the negative emotions as well. And trust me, they are there. So just because you don't feel them doesn't mean that you don't have them. You might have suppressed them or depressed them or just pushed it under. There's a reason why it's called depression. The depression just means you're not allowing yourself to feel any negative emotions, and you're actually just pressing that down further and further. And what happens is it gets all of this negative emotions and stress and trauma and unresolved feelings get stored in your solar plexus area, which is like your stomach area. So if you start having issues like GI issues, incontinence, diarrhea, any sort of issues in your stomach area, which also includes your lungs, your kidney, or not your lungs, your kidney, your liver, anything in that area, it may actually be stemming from the fact that you've been repressing all emotions all of these years, and starts from your childhood, believe it or not. Because if you just imagine when you're a child and you started having hysterical situations where you just asked for what you want, you cried it out, what did your parents do? Did they say, oh, it's okay, you know what, let it all out, it's all good, go ahead, I'm here for you? Maybe they were doing that. That's great. Most of the time, if you're anything like my parents, they're probably like, okay, stop that. Like, that's enough, go to your room, or, it's not okay to have these kind of emotions. You must always be positive and, be grateful, things like that. So you start learning from a very young age, and I see it happening even now, that it's not okay to have negative emotions. I have even given myself permission to grieve. It's okay. You can grieve situations, events, of course, people, or even, your goals. Like, okay, you know what? I didn't achieve this goal. I'm just, I'm going to allow myself to go through this cyclical process of grief so that I can really feel those emotions. But then once you feel them, your body will automatically release them for you because you've learned your lessons. Maybe you're going to make some different changes. There's nothing wrong in failure because you've just learned, okay, well, that didn't quite work, but there's always a gift. There's always a lesson from that. So, what else can we do about our mental, emotional, and physical state and our health? So again, your thoughts lead to your emotions, which then lead to your behaviors, which then leads to your actions. And a lot of people believe that your emotions are rational. So if we didn't learn anything else from today's session, I'm going to leave you, I'm not going to leave you right now, but just remember your emotions 99.9% of the time are not rational. They are irrational. It's okay to have them as long as you allow yourself to process it and then release it. Just think about it. Somebody cuts you off on the road. Is it rational to, swear cuss words on them and be like super mad at them because, how dare he cut you? He probably didn't even notice what he was doing half the time, right? He probably has a bunch of things going on in his own mind. He's not thinking, okay, I'm going to purposely cut this person off and ruin their day. But yet we have this, immediate impulsive like reaction to that person. It's just, it's not rational. And it's okay, we just have to understand that and learn how to process it and release it. So we can start by looking at our thoughts. That's the first thing that I had to do is, look at all of the thoughts that are coming in and out from our minds, and not be judgmental of them, not fear them, not suppress them. It's okay if I have a negative thought. It's okay. Just be the observer and then just observe yourself having these unhelpful thoughts, because I wouldn't call them negative per se. It's just they're not really helpful. And if you get confused, like, well, what's helpful versus what's not helpful? Unhelpful are things like somebody said something happened, and you immediately go into this mind reading mode. Oh, this person said this. That must mean like this, they don't love me anymore. They don't care for me. I do all this, stuff for them, right? And you start going to this fortune telling mode. Okay, that's it. Like, our marriage is over, or this job is done. Like, I'm done with this. You start kind of going down that downward spiral. Those are the unhelpful thoughts. And then there's helpful thoughts. maybe you change your perspective. Okay, let's look at it from what could have actually happened with that person or that situation. And it doesn't mean that you always have to be positive about everything, but it's the helpful thoughts are ones that empower you. So you hold the power within yourself. Like, so I feel really triggered right now that this person said this. What is it within me that's actually triggering my own response, right? Because you choose your emotions. The other person doesn't choose them for you. So why am I feeling so triggered and having this negative emotion based on what somebody else said? So you have to do the inner work within yourself to understand what's going on there and really process that. So some easy ways, easy life hacks, because trust me, when I was going through this year of recovery, I couldn't move, I couldn't go anywhere. I was kind of just stuck on the bed. So I couldn't really go out to different people practitioners that actually heal. I did, try to go once or twice, and I really learned a lot about all the holistic wellness modalities out there that really paved my path to recovery, because I didn't need all of these unnecessary surgeries that the doctors were telling me about. But the one thing, I started looking for things that I can do on my own. How can I start healing myself through the mind, body, and energy connection on my own from wherever I am? Because I then wanted to bring that to the workplace as well. So being in cyber, I noticed that a lot of people were going through burnout, stress, overwhelm, depression, anxiety, all the major labels out there. And they really didn't know how to handle that. So I really wanted to learn it for myself and actually embody what I represent so that I can bring it to the workplace setting, especially in the IT world, and to the leaders. So one thing was setting loving boundaries. So when I say boundaries, sometimes it carries a connotation that, okay, you're just putting a wall and protecting yourself. That's not what we mean here. It's setting loving boundaries for yourself. You have to set your own boundaries within you. So it means like taking the time to take care of your wellness, putting that as your number one priority. How many times have we heard, well, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. Like, and a lot of people ask me like, oh, Jothi, how do you find the time to do this? Like, well, that's exactly it. I find the time. Everyone has the same amount of time on their hands. There's 24 hours in the day. If you really start looking through how you're spending those 24 hours, I can guarantee you'll find at least 5 to 10 minutes throughout the day that will then add up that you can prioritize for your own wellness. Control. There's a lot of ammunition when it comes to control. We're all trying to control something or other in our lives, including me. We really have to get deep into why are you trying to control things? What can you control? What can't you control? What are things that you wish to control? And really dig deep into that. So we're not going to go into the hows in this, because I do have an actual program where it's a transformational program where I take people through these journeys of self-discovery, and so we'll talk about that at the end. But these are just some of the tactics that we use. And a lot of times, the need for control comes down to fear. What are you really fearing? Are you fearing criticism? Are you fearing being lonely? Are you fearing not being good enough? For a lot of us women out there, especially if you're from the Asian origin, we were brought up by having parents and aunts and uncles that kept telling us like over and over again, how we're not good enough, or we have to be a certain way, or you have to, meet a certain criteria for them. So you start building up this resentment, and also the fear of, hey, maybe I'm just like not good enough. So if you fail in one thing, something happens, you didn't, you wanted to make, let's say, $10,000 a month, and then you ended up with 9,000. Immediately it goes like, oh, you know what? I'm just not good enough. I should have never aimed for that. And you start going that downward spiral. So until we actually release all of these internal fears that have been kind of built into us from our own parents and maybe even society and culture and school systems, it's going to be much harder for us. We talked about expectations already. So one really key note here is taking vacations every day throughout the day. I know it sounds totally bizarre. Probably thinking, oh, this, this girl is just crazy. It is so important. This is probably the number one. And it's not just taking 5 minutes out of every hour just to go to the bathroom and come back, or just go get your water. Sure, you can do that too, but it's really being strategic with those 5 minutes. Taking those 5 minutes and rejuvenating yourself, whether you're rejuvenating your mind, maybe doing mindset exercises, maybe rejuvenating your body. You're doing some quick exercise you can do physically, and actually that carries a lot more weight. And it's a lot more effective to do some sort of physical exercise 5 minutes every hour throughout the day during your waking hours than it is to sit all day in this crunched up position, having a whole lot of stress on your neck and just on your mind. And then taking one to gym, because it's what you do most that counts. So if the 23 hours in the day, you're not really thinking about your own wellness, and then 1 hour a day, that's the time that you focus on your wellness, it's really not going to work as well as you think it would. So I promised that I am going to show you some actual wellness hacks. So these are great crisis mode techniques that work in the workplace as well as home. You could also teach it to your kids, but definitely for yourself. And these have worked great for me. So one is just from a mindset perspective, really looking at the raw facts of every situation. Whether somebody said this or something happened or a situation occurred, just think first of all, take yourself, be the observer of the situation. It's almost like you're watching a movie take place, right? You're not in the movie. What are the actual facts? So, maybe somebody didn't come home on time and you're waiting. Maybe this is obviously it's a marriage type of situation. And, instead of adding your own stories to like, why didn't he come home on time? Like, what happened there? Did he not bother to call me? Just lay it out the facts. Okay. He came home a little bit late. So that's the facts, right? That's it. And then, choose a more empowering story about the facts. So is the story that you're adding to the facts, is that actually empowering you, or is it making you feel good, or is it kind of you're adding in all those unhelpful thoughts with the fortune telling and the mind reading, and it's actually bringing you down? Because by you bringing yourself down, you're actually bringing down the relationship as well, and the energy of the collective energy there. So, just gather, and you could do this with the work setting too, just gather the pure facts, especially if there's an incident or something happened. And you could this also allows you to be a little bit more neutral and come from a level-headed mindset. Because the moment your thoughts and your feelings are just like way off the roof or way down the downward spiral, you're not able to think strategically or even think logically. So it's just and just remember that this is everything's a temporary state. There's nothing in life that just stays stagnant forever. There's either you're growing upward or you're growing downward. Okay, so it's just the truth. The truth is only the truth in the moment. So just remember that. So physical. So we talked about how do you physically, from a body perspective, how do you get yourself back to that equilibrium state so that you can move to the upper states? So shaking yourself off. It sounds a little silly. I know you're not a dog, but there's a reason actually why dogs do this and other pets do this too. And also athletes. If you look at pro athletes and before the Olympics or any sort of like major event, you see them, they're like constantly just shaking themselves off. And it's a natural way for your body to regulate your fight or flight response. Because remember, when you go into this crisis mode, you just immediately go into a fight or flight response, whether you unconsciously. So in order to kind of regulate that and release that tension and that mode, it's just a great idea to just shake yourself off. So you can start with shaking your hands off, It'll give you like a good exercise for your hands, and then just imagine all the tension, stress coming off your hands, and then start, go down to your arms and even your head. And if you just do this for like a minute or two, you'll notice such a huge relief. You don't have to sit there shaking yourself off for like, hours and hours. Just 5 minutes. So all of these exercises I'm teaching you, they'll have a really good effect on your whole system, on your whole parasympathetic nervous system within minutes, which is why I came up with these. So breath work. So again, we don't have to turn into monks. We don't have to be find hours and hours of meditation time, although meditation, of course, is helpful, but we don't have to go to the extreme in these things. And sometimes the wellness world may make it sound it's like too woo-woo, or oh, you got to spend all this time and energy doing these things that you don't want to make the time for. No, breath work, simple things, just take that 5 minutes every hour that you have to do. You have to prioritize yourself, because you are what you bring to the world. So if you don't prioritize yourself, nobody else is going to do that for you. So within that 5 minutes, you can do any of these things. So one is just taking a deep breath in, a belly breath. So we're not coming from our chest, we're coming from the belly. And you hold it for 4 counts. And then you exhale for 4 counts. And you just repeat that. You inhale through your belly, so feel your belly expanding for 4 counts. Then you hold it for 4 counts. And then you take a long, deep exhale for 4 counts. And the reason why we focus for the belly, if you remember what I said before, humans tend to hold all of their stress, tension, negative emotions, suppressed feelings that we haven't allowed ourselves to feel in our core, in our belly area. So the more we can, focus on our breath, get to that deep, relaxed state. And yes, it is okay to do this during the work hours, because guess what? When you get into that deep, relaxed state, that's when you make the best decisions. So it's counter productive. If you're a type A personality, you're always in the go. Oh, I don't have time for this. Like I'm not being productive. I'm taking time to do this breath work. It's actually the opposite, because by not allowing yourself to do this, you're probably going to make mistakes. You're not going to be in your 100% state, and you're actually doing a disservice for your organization or your family, and of course yourself as well. So by taking this time off of just 5 minutes and getting yourself back into equilibrium, releasing any tension that might have come up in that hour, you're actually, doing yourself a great service, so you can be a better service to yourself and others. So I know we're running out of time, so I'm not going to go through each one of these, but the second one's the VU chanting. So when you exhale, you make this sound. Yeah, we probably don't want to make that in the workplace, but hey, go to the bathroom, sit in your car. If you're at home, do this right before you go to bed, so you can have a nice restful sleep. It's amazing, because the VU chanting, it actually brings up all the emotions from your core to your heart, to your mind, and then it releases it. And you can notice that happening as well. So it's just a magical thing to do. And then alternate nostril breathing. So I'm sure the slides will be available after this if you're wanting to try it, but just, breathing in from one side, releasing it from the other side, breathing in from the other side, releasing it on the opposite side. And this really is great for clearing your mind. So if you're kind of at that, oh, I don't know what to do in the situation, or we have multiple choices and you don't really know which direction to go, the alternate nostril breathing is a great way to just balance both sides of your brain and kind of give you a clearer picture. So tap it out. We don't have time to go too far into this, but it's called Emotional Freedom Technique, is what EFT stands for. And there's different points in your system. There's like meridian lines that run through all of your body, and then there's different meridian points. That's where your energy collects. So by tapping on those different points, and by saying some positive affirmations, you're actually able to release all that stress and tension and negative emotions from your system. And the last one I'll leave you with is called Peace Begins With Me. This is a simple technique. You just like touch your fingers together like this on your thumb. And then while you're doing that, you say, peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. And this is great because you can do this in the workplace. You could do it underneath your desk. No one's going to even know what you're doing. You could do it in the middle of a conversation that might seem a little, not so positive sometimes. You could just keep on like tapping your fingers or just hold it together underneath your, on your lap and tap your fingers and then just say the words in your mind. The peace begins with me. It's a great way, if you're giving a presentation or this, you're about to go into a conversation that might not seem so calm and peaceful. It's a great a prepping step for you. So again, just want to leave you with the importance of wellness, not only in your life, but also, especially if you're in the cyber and IT field. And if you're in an organization, you're a leader in an organization, it is so crucial that you prioritize your own wellness so you can be the leader that really inspires others and motivates others to follow you, not just being a boss or a supervisor. So with that, I do have a pretty comprehensive transformational program that really takes people through this whole journey where you're able to kind of release all of the things that you've been storing in yourself, most likely from childhood itself, and just really get to that state of not just peace and calmness, but also where you actually invite in the good chaos in your life so that you can get to that feeling of exhilaration like that surfer on the riding wave. So if you're interested or in learning more, feel free to contact me at jothi.dugar@gmail.com. You can also check out my website at www.jothidugar.com. I am offering free consultations for anyone as well with a variety of programs that I have in place if you're interested. All right, well, thank you so much. Do we have time for questions? I don't see. Do we have time for questions? I'm not really sure. Let's see. I'm not sure if I'm still on, but let me look at the chat message. See if there's any questions here. Seems like Jason's asking about how about stress tablets. So it depends on, are we talking about like natural ingredients in the tablets or is it prescription? I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you not to take any prescriptions, but what prescriptions usually do is it suppresses your actual symptoms. So it makes you feel like things are getting better because it's just suppressing them. But at the same time, it's also doing more damage to your system because now you're telling your system like, oh, don't give me these symptoms because I don't want to hear it. If it's natural stress relief tablets, it's kind of generic, so I would have to see what's in them, make sure that they're good quality ingredients. Are they organic? Where is it coming from? What are those ingredients? There's a lot of times people think, oh, there you are. I was just answering a quick question. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. You have enough time.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I was just talking, somebody had asked about stress tablets, so I was just quickly answering that. So there's a lot of, a lot of people say a lot of different things. What I believe is you are a unique person. So just because something is good for somebody else does not mean it's actually good for you. And that actually includes vegetables and things that you would normally consider like, oh, there's nothing wrong with vegetables, but you might actually be sensitive to certain things that somebody else isn't. So it's hard to answer a generic questions like, oh, should I take these stress tablets? There's things you can do to actually test. It's called muscle testing, if anyone's heard about that. So you can actually hold the bottle or even just imagine the bottle in your hand and actually do a muscle test because your muscles never lie. I use this on my kids all the time when there's like, he said, she said, I'm like, okay, let's do a muscle test to see who's lying. And they know when the muscle test is coming, one of them, oh, okay, it was me, sorry. So there's different things you can do that I can help you with to actually test for yourself and what's good for you.
Okay, I have one more question for you from the audience.
Sure.
How do you get into routine while working from home? Because you have a lot of distractions and suddenly work might get overwhelming, but how do you develop a routine while working from home?
I think you answered your own question. You just have to develop your routine. You have to, it's all about what you want to prioritize. So if you're the type of person that goes around saying, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, I'm really stressed out, then, and trust me, I used to be that person. So there's no judgments here. But what it comes down to is how badly do you want to get to your actual end goals? So if your goal is to, I don't know, be a CEO one day, what are the steps you're actually taking to get there? Because trust me, and what is the feeling that you want, that you think you're going to have when you get to be your CEO? Because a lot of times we want a lot of things, and the reason is we don't just want those things. We want that feeling that comes out of having those things. Oh, so if I am a CEO, I think I'm going to feel really happy and just really, successful or really powerful. You can actually have those same feelings even now. That's the easiest way to attract what you want. But you have to do that strategically as well. So look at your day. I always kind of recommend, creating a 24-hour template and then go through an entire week and then just write down everything you did in that 24-hour period, including sleep, including talking on the phone, including work. And I've even asked my staff to do this in the workplace setting too, because even in the workplace, there's never a dull day, especially if you're in cyber or IT, right? Your job is never done. You can't have that sense of fulfillment that some people have, like, okay, I conquered all of these hackers, like now they'll never hack us again. That's just not going to happen. So you have to look at your day and see, how are you spending it? And there's actually a science behind this too. If you're like all over the place, like your meetings and your documentation work and anything else you're doing, and it's all scattered and combined together, it's actually not the most productive way to do things. So try to find some blocks of time. Okay, I'm going to do all my meetings between these hours. I'm going to do all my writing or documentation or emails type of stuff in like this block of hour. I know it's harder said than done, but you're actually more effective and more productive by doing it that way.
Okay, thank you. I have another question from Fred. So Fred asks, is there a difference in how men and women cope with stress?
Yes. Yeah, there definitely is. All people are equal, but they're also different in how they process things. So yes, men and women can have stress, but yeah, the way they handle it is slightly different. One, because of how you're wired, and also because innately men are wired differently than women. But also you then add in the society, opinions, beliefs, and values, and then your parents or how you grew up. So it's not an easy thing to say in a couple seconds, but yeah, the way you really process your emotions and the way to release them is very different. Okay. But we do get through that in my program as well.
Okay, so I have one more question from Samuel. Does work from home affect a normal person's sleeping habits?
Yeah, so again, it depends on. So what this COVID is actually bringing out in us is actually everything that we should have been looking at anyway, but we've just been kind of pushing it off, or we haven't prioritized it, right? So so when you see people like, oh, my husband's home all day, how do I handle this? Like, well, there's this shouldn't be a problem if you had prioritized your marriage or prioritized your wellness or how you deal with things on an ongoing basis. Then no situation should affect you negatively. But but this is actually bringing up all of our fears, all of our insecurities, like everything that we've just been kind of poo-pooing or suppressing down or not made the time for. That's what it's bringing out. So if you're having issues sleeping right now, most likely you probably already had that even before. It's just kind of exaggerating the effect or the impact of it. So sleep is a very interesting phenomenon because most people ask me like, oh, how do I sleep better? But the way you sleep or how you sleep or how much of a quality sleep you get is actually dependent on how you live when you're not sleeping, because your sleep just reflects the quality of life that you're actually living when you're not sleeping. So unless you start changing that, looking at eating, diet, nutrition. I'm not saying going on a diet, but like just the food that you're eating, how much of it that you're eating, what are you eating, and also how are you using your body throughout the day. What type of exercises are you doing? How are you processing that stress and emotions? Because the more you tend to not process your emotions and you're just kind of like stuffing it down, then that's going to affect your sleep and you're not going to get a good quality sleep either.
Okay, thank you so much for that very enlightening and I would say empowering and relaxing session. I think we're done with the questions. Everyone is very, very happy, and I think everyone was very happy that it was a little different than a proper technical cybersecurity presentation. And because of our current work from home situation, the stress is increasing. This is something all of us definitely need on how to cope. We have now varied timings. At least when we used to go to the office, we had fixed timings. Here you get calls, as you said, at all times of the day. There's no fixed schedule. You have to deal with all that, make time for yourself as well. How you manage all of that. So thank you so much. I think everyone is very happy. Thank you, Jothi.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.